Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We are on, I don't know what session for Fas Noor, but
Session
we've,
36.
yeah, 36 overall. Yeah, thanks. Okay. So, welcome back. And I'm trying to remember what we talked about last time. Now, I will make a confession to you guys, and I apologize to you for it. I haven't really prepared that much for the session, and the session does require preparation. So we might need to do it like a little bit of reading, which I should have done on my own and then convey the reading back to you guys. I apologize for that. Let's start with a quick recap then. This whole fuss is about dualities, right? Isn't it? Dualities. So quick recap. What's the first duality we came across?
تشبيه and تنزيه.
Yeah, Mumtaz. Excellent. One after that? Shall we say Quran Furqan?
Yeah.
That's not a duality, right?
Of course, yeah.
What's one after that?
ليل ونهار.
Good. And after that? Kashf and Sitr? Right? Kashf and Sitr was like a pretty big duality for the whole fuss, and one that we came across last time as well. And so the whole point of the fuss is that we're seeing a story about how these dualities become reconciled to one another, right? Just like in, I think is it in Nietzsche? He talks about a will to power, right? Then in Viktor Frankl, you get this thing called a will to meaning. There's an intrinsic drive in us that wants to find meaning. So in the fuss, you'll find like a will to union. All these dualities are striving to become united in one another. Moving from Furqan to Quran, because the affair, the whole reality is Quran, right? This is the way things are. And it's a story. The story has two levels. One is the apparent meaning you find in Surah Nuh, في Quran al-Majid. And then there's a second story happening, bubbling beneath the surface, right? There's a second story bubbling beneath the surface, which is the story of Ma'rifah that Sheikh Al-Akbar is telling us about Qawm Nuh, who are arifin in themselves in some ways, right? They're not kumal, they're not complete, but they're nowhere in some ways. With the Ma'rifah of Sayyid Nuh alayhi salam, which is his wilaya. And so that's the story he's continuing to tell as we progress throughout the fuss. Now, Sayyid Nuh alayhi salam brings Furqan, so they reject it because the affair is Quran, because they're stationed in Quran. What's the other dimension to the story? What else is happening? Something big we talked about last time.
That the people of Sayyidina Nuh were also special in their own way, that they had to be approached through the Quran rather than the Furqan.
Right, but although it is an impossibility that Sayyidina Nuh could approach them from Quran because he wasn't given the Quran. But you're right, yes, they're stationed in Quran. But there's also something else. It's a major component to the fuss. It's one verse in the Quran that ties the entire fuss together. It ties every single passage together with this one verse. Although the Shaykh Al-Akbar does not name the verse explicitly. It's from the 11th surah of the Quran. What is the verse?
Is it about them mocking Nuh alayhi salam and Nuh alayhi salam mirroring them by mocking them?
Yes. And what is the verse? Let me try and get it out as well. If I'm not mistaken, it's 1137. So, which goes something like this, right? Because it's in reference to the Safina, right? Which is also called the Fulk. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. وَأَصْنَعِ الْفُلْكَ بِعْيُونِنَا, right? Yeah, but then that's not it. Then I can't remember what it was. Sorry, I apologize for that. Then I should just like try and find the verse. Just give me 1 second. See if I got the yes right here.
Is it verse 38, Sidi? The
Is it
next verse
38?
after that. It is. So he began to build the ark, and whenever some of the
Thanks so
chiefs of
much. Brilliant. No, go ahead. Go ahead. Bismillah. I thought it was 37. Yeah, go ahead, please.
So he began to build the ark, and whenever some of the chiefs of his people passed by, they mocked him. He said, "If you laugh at us, we will soon laugh at you in the same way."
Exactly. ويصنع الفلك وكلما مر عليه ملأ من قومه سخروا منه. They mock him. قال إن تسخروا منا فإنا نسخر منكم كما تسخرون. Right? So then he says, if you're going to mock us, we will mock you back just as you mocked us. And this is what they're doing throughout the entire fuss. It's the whole fuss is structured by this idea. Because, subhanAllah, like there's lots of things happening with that verse. You see how they're mirroring one another, right? And so you get the demonstration of the way wujud is structured through this concept in this story, which is now we get the other duality, which is Dhahir and Batin, outward and inward, and the divine names al-Dhahir and al-Batin, as they have a conflict with one another. These two divine names conflict with one another, and you see that playing out in their what's called their loci manifestation, their madahir, right? Which is for the divine name al-Batin through Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam, and to the divine name al-Dhahir is through his people and their idols, right? In the beginning of Surah Nuh, he asks of his people three things. What does he ask of them? And on the screen, do you see the Quran, or do you see the on your screen? Do you see the fuss, or do you see the Quran?
We see Chittik, the 9th deputyship.
Is that what you see? Okay, I apologize, and let me change that. Okay. Okay. Oh, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
I thought I opened the fuss. Okay, do you see Quran now, or do you see
Quran? Quran.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so the three things he asked them to do is an a'budu Allah wattaquhu wa ati'un. And it means wa ati'uni, like, and obey me, right? So they mock him in all three things, right? When he says a'budu Allah, he means he's calling them to one God. So what do? They call to 5 gods, right? And more than 5 gods. ولا تذر آلهتكم ولا تذر ودا ولا سواع ولا يغوث ويعوق ونصر. Those are their 5 gods, and then plus other ones too. So you see, he calls to one god, they call to 5, right? That's mocking him. He says, have taqwa of God, right? But instead, they're having taqwa away from the message of Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam, right? They're doing the exact opposite. They're guarding themselves from him because they cover their ears, right? And they cover their clothes. وَأَطِيعُونِي, and obey me, but instead they disobey him, right? The mockery continues. Why is the idea, the theme of the mockery important? Let's go back to the fuss. If you're not seeing the fuss, please tell me. Wait, 1 second. Yeah, why is the mockery important?
Because
mockery.
he was mimicking them. Sorry.
Yes, Huma, great. And Hannah, you were saying?
Yeah, I was my brain because it was this whole the hidden aspect of them. It's like a strange kind of obeying in the way that they cover themselves. They cover their ears. They're supposed to cover themselves. There's some kind of weird. Anyway, I'm sorry, I can't remember now.
Yeah, you're thinking
it's the reverse psychology, right? He should have done the opposite to make them do what he wanted to do.
Yeah, but he couldn't though, because what is to kashaf Quran? You're right, Huma. But he couldn't, because it's not in his capacity to do that. Kashaf is to Quran, what sitr is to Furqan. That's the other duality. Kashaf is to Quran, what sitr is to Quran, what sitr is to Furqan, because Quran unveils and Furqan veils, right?
Is it because their mockery is exactly related to that? Because it reflects the way that they have an unveiling element of being in that ocean. If the Prophet ﷺ had spoken to them, they would have been acknowledged, but because it was Nuh, they shut it off. But that's why the mockery is that what makes it important? No.
Yes, partly. As you said, Hannah, if Sayyidina Nuh brought them just one verse of Quran or half a verse of Quran, they would have accepted the message. Do you see how small half a verse is? That's a small that's a small half of a verse, right? Because they were ready to accept Quran. You know how it's like if something has the right predisposition, all you do is give it the tiniest spark, and boom, it's ignited. Or you give something the tiniest push, and suddenly he moves, he's alive. Or you give a smart student, right, the tiniest hint of something, and suddenly he or she gets the whole idea because the predisposition's ready. That's why he said even half a verse, because they were ready to accept Quran by virtue of being stationed in the maqam of Quran. Now, kashaf and sitr. And you're right, Huma. Reverse psychology plays into it just a little bit, because the idea is that they wanted to mock Sayyidina alayhi salam. But Sheikh Al-Akbar points something out. Mockery is a form of imitation, is it not? And it being a form of imitation, is it not a form of following? It is, right? But it's a corrupted form of following.
It was like that reminded me of that thing where the person imitates the lisp of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, and Allah forgives him because it's a kind of imitate, because he's imitating the Prophet of Musa, even though he's mocking him.
I have never heard that story before, but that's exactly it, Hannah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sheikh Nazim's story.
I have.
So Sheikh Nazim's story. Yeah.
This is it, Hannah. So the way you described it, that's exactly it. Mockery is a form of following. So they mocked the command of Sayyidina Nuh to seek forgiveness, because the outward, like the inner meaning, because he comes from the divine name al-Batin, the inward meaning of his words is seek God's forgiveness. But the literal outward, like literal words, is cover yourselves. So they covered themselves. So that's mockery. Had they been called instead to uncover themselves, they would have done that. And that would have benefited them, because then they would have been uncovering the haqa'iq, the realities. Because remember, they're arifin. And then they would have accepted his message. But Sayyidina can't do that. It's not possible, because he doesn't have Quran. It's the point I keep coming back to. He's not at fault. He's totally innocent. His job as a Rasul is to bring the Risalah. Isn't his fault. But it is a demonstration of the disparity between him and who? The Khatam al-Anbiya, no?
Yeah.
So with that in mind, he now has to do something else. Point of view of his wilaya and their quote unquote wilaya, yeah? Guys, if at any point my connection is unstable, please tell me, because I'm getting a message. So the story now continues, right? And we also read a passage from the commentary of Sayyidina Dawood al-Qaysari, right? The one of the exegetes of the Fusus al-Hikam, right? Who explains that it's as if that they were like in their the meaning of their words, the meaning of what they're doing is it's as if they're asking Nuh alayhi salam to bring down God's wrath upon them so that it can bring them to the state of perfection. Right? Do you guys remember that? If not, I can bring the passage up. That's at some point later on. So that's what Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam is doing. It's as if he is their murshid, and he's going to guide them towards the state of their perfection, which is in annihilation. And we'll see how that happens. But it's a long story. So the story happens step by step, right? So given that he knows now that they're in the stage of the Quran, all he can do is offer for Furqan. He can do, right? So can I get someone to read, please? I'm going to try and read to the bottom of the page, and then we'll explain it. Start from فَمَا دَعَا Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam down to the bottom. I mean, then should I get two people to do it, I guess? No, Zinir, go ahead. That's fine.
Where should I start from?
فَمَا دَعَا مُحَمَّدٌ.
Okay. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فما دعا محمد قومه ليلا ونهارا بل دعاهم ليلا في نهار ونهارا في ليل. فقال نوح في حكمته لقومه يرسل السماء عليكم مدرارا، وهي المعارف العقلية في المعاني والنظر الاعتباري، ويمددكم بأموال أي بما يميل بكم إليه، فإذا مال بكم إليه رأيتم صورتكم فيه، فمن تخيل منكم أنه رآه فما عرف، ومن عرف منكم أنه رأى نفسه فهو العارف. فلهذا انقسم الناس إلى غير عالم وعالم، وولده وهو ما أنتجه لهم نظرهم الفكري، والأمر موقوف علمه على المشاهدة بعيد عن النتائج الفكر، إلا خسارة، فما ربحت تجارتهم، فزال عنهم ما كان في أيديهم مما كانوا يتخيلون أنه ملك لهم وهو في المحمديين، وأنفقوا مما جعلكم مستخلفين فيه، وفي نوح ألا تتخذوا من دوني وكيلا، فأثبت الملك لهم والوكالة لله، فهم مستخلفون فيهم، فالملك لله وهو وكيلهم، فالملك لهم، وذلك الملك الاستخلاف. وبهذا كان الحق ملك الملك، كما قال الترمذي ومكروا مكرا كبارا.
Yeah,
لأن
thank
الدعوة
you.
لله.
That's it. Thank you so much, Nina. We're definitely going to stop there because we have enough material to maybe talk about this for hours, not just 1 hour, for several hours actually. Given the amount of things that are packed into this, right? So let's start. Did you guys pick up on the word that Nina read out? Muhammadin. Did you hear that?
It sounded, I don't know, like it just reminded me of like just the Orientalist Mohammedans spelled with people.
But Zanira, you saw that word, right?
Yeah, of course.
What about the rest of you? Did you pick up on it or not? Because if not, I'll read it again.
Yeah, I did.
And the rest of you? Here you'll see right here. وَهُوَ فِي الْمُحَمَّدِيِّينَ, just like she read out, right? The Muhammadans, which is what Orientalists call Muslims, correct? For Shaykh al-Akbar, this word Muhammadin, it has a very special meaning. What's it mean?
Oh, it's the ones who are completely annihilated in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
That's no. Yes, Hannah, yes. And I'll phrase it a slightly different way just to make it make sense to this fuss. But you're absolutely right, Hannah. They are the Muhammadan awliya. Muhammadans are the Muhammadan awliya. What's it mean to be like a Muhammadan wali as opposed to like an Isawi wali or a Musawi wali? What does that stuff mean?
Means they inherit from the Muhammadan reality.
Who? Which ones?
The Muhammadiyin, I think.
And what about the Isawin?
They inherit from Isa al-Islam's reality.
Okay, and the Musawin?
From Hazrat Musa.
Yes. And so on with all the prophets. So this is about prophetic inheritance. This is the This is the wiratha al-nabawiyya, right? And it goes back to a hadith that says, إن العلماء ورثة الأنبياء. What does that mean?
That they inherit, they are the heirs of the prophets.
Who are the heirs of the prophets?
The friends, the walis, the awliya are
Scholars.
inherited from their respective prophets.
So the ulama, the ones who know God, they can be scholars or they don't have to be scholars. The ones who know God, they are the ones who inherit. They are the inheritors of the prophets. And another version of the hadith goes that what the prophets are to Bani Israel, because many prophets were sent to Bani Israel. What the prophets are to Bani Israel, the ulama of this ummah are to the people of this ummah. So they are akin to the prophets because they are their inheritors. So when you are an inheritor of a specific prophet, you inherit his knowledge, and you inherit his character, and you inherit his ahwal, his inner states. Three things: his knowledge, his inner ahwal, and his character. So you behave like that prophet.
And his miracles?
Say it again, sorry?
His miracles. Like Isa Sham's miracle being walking on water.
And his miracles, absolutely right. Yes, exactly. Exactly. So if you're an Isawi saint, a Christic saint, you also have the ability to walk on water. If you're a Muhammadan saint, you fly through the air. And if you're a Musawi saint, your face shines with light, right? And so on and so forth. And if you're a Musawi saint, you have a majestic personality, you have a strong haiba, awe. People are in awe of you. It's not easy to be with you. Whereas if you're an Isawi saint, you have a very jamali nature, a very beautiful, easygoing nature. People love to be with you, right? So then he is now giving us another duality, and he's going to do this. He'll pair up Quranic verses with either with verses from Surah Nuh or verses that are similar to it. You've got this duality now comparing Muhammadan awliya to Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam, or a verse from Surah Nuh. We already have one before that. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ. That's a Muhammadan verse. It's the perfect verse, right? As opposed to what? دَعَوْتُ قَوْمِي لَيْلًا وَنَهَارًا. We've already come across the first pair of Quranic verses. Because دَعَوْتُ قَوْمِي لَيْلًا وَنَهَارًا is the opposite of لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ. Because لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ is night in the day and day in the night. No? Right? Which is sunrise and sunset, right? It's tanzih inside tashbih and tashbih inside tanzih. They're not separate. They're intertwined and unite into another, right? So now you've got the second pair. And I'm not going to get into this now, but from here on out, you're going to find this. He's doing this all the time. A Muhammadan verse paired against a Nuhi verse. A Muhammadan verse paired against a Nuhi verse. And you will see why he does that. But this is really interesting because it's so interesting to find Muhammad mentioned so often in this fuss. Why is he mentioned so often in this fuss? Because he just told us that if the Quran was sent to the people of Nuh, they would have responded to it. What does that mean? He doesn't say it explicitly. But yeah, go ahead, Hannah. Exactly. Go ahead.
Muhammadan saints inheritors. Astaghfirullah.
Astaghfirullah, right? The Qawm Nuh, right?
Yeah.
So he doesn't say. So he doesn't say word for word that they are the actual Muhammadan saints, as you said, Astaghfirullah. They're actually mushrikun. Like, so we preserve the outward, but it's as if they have the same hal as the Muhammadan saints. Because what does Tilimsani say? Tilimsani says that if you say that they are stationed in Quran, what does it follow? It follows that they are Ahl Quran. Who are the Ahl Quran? Al-Muhammadiyeen. They are stationed in the way station of Quran. And so they act and behave like Muhammadans, even though they're not technically Muhammadans. It's a really extraordinary claim. So what Hannah mentioned, she was very polite. This is one of the chapters that upsets Ibn Taymiyyah much more than the others. And he showed how upset he was when he was writing his fatwa against the Shaykh al-Akbar. And so he was talking about all this, go for a shirk, go for a shirk, go for a shirk. And you can kind of see why, right? But Hannah was much more polite about it. Sorry, Hannah, like I'm not drawing a comparison between you and Ibn Taymiyyah at all. But yes, you can see why he was kind of upset, right? This Qawm Nuh, they have the hal of the Muhammadans, but they're not Muhammadans themselves, but they behave that way. So it only follows that the ones who have the same the same state as the Muhammadans, who behave the same way as them, will respond to the book of Muhammad. No?
Siri?
So, yes, go ahead.
So, would you say that they had the potential to be Mohammedan saints, but they didn't like actualize it? Would you put it like that? Because the last,
Absolutely.
okay, because you said that they bring together the tanzih and tashbih aspects, but they don't do it in a harmonious way. That's what we discussed last time, right? So, so they have the potential of bringing things together, but they don't do it in the right way. Is that what you mean, that they have the potential but they don't actualize it completely?
That is absolutely correct. Yes.
I'm interrupting Astaghfirullah. Tell me to
No,
stop.
go ahead.
Because you mentioned that their Sayyidina Nuh is like the Murshid, and the reason they bring upon themselves annihilation through the flood is
yes,
to bring them to their station, so that ultimately then they do realize it, even though not in their time, while they're alive, but through their death or whatever it is, they do reach the station of Muhammadiyun. Is that
is absolutely correct. Yes. Yes.
Oh, going round and wow, inshallah. Yeah, okay, thank you.
110%. That's exactly it. I want to show you guys something. Can you see the Quran, or are you seeing the Fas Nuh? You're seeing Fas Nuh, right? Let me just change it. Okay. Okay, let's go back to the Quran. Okay. So everyone knows this surah, I'm pretty sure, right? So let's go to, right? They drown and they burn in the fire, right? Do we all agree that they drown and burn in the fire?
Yep.
Okay, so that's the verse, right? What does he say here after that? Who wants to read that? Anyone?
I can read it. وقال نوح
Go ahead.
ربي لا تذر على الأرض من الكافرين ديارا.
Yes, and this one?
إنك إن تذرهم يضلوا عبادك ولا يلدوا إلا فاجرا كفارا.
In this one?
رب اغفر لي ولوالدي ولمن دخل بيتي مؤمنا وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات ولا تزد الظالمين إلا تبارا.
Okay. Did you guys just roughly understand the sense of those verses? Yeah? Okay. Here it says that they drowned and burned, right? So can we agree that they're dead?
Yeah, but you also spoke about the Ansara part.
No. Okay, you're right, Zena, but put that to the side just for a minute. I don't want to confuse people because really it's a thing you just have to walk step by step. But yes, you're right, Zinera, but that'll come later on. But just hold on. Just can we agree just in the normal tafsir of the verse, they're dead, right? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. They're dead. Why is he still praying against them if they're dead? Think about it. He's praying against them again and again.
Sorry,
But
are
they're
you saying
dead.
Vidar at the point when he says رب لا تذر على الأرض من الكافرين ديارا?
Say it again. Sorry, what?
Are you saying when he says, when Nuh al-Islam is saying رب لا تذر على الأرض من الكافرين ديارا, that they're already dead?
Yes.
But
If you follow the sequence of the verses, yes.
okay, right, because before, but see, I mean, yeah. Again, the translation is a bit off, right? Because it says Noah had prayed. So it's like, which again, that's an interpretation. Because it's like saying that this ayah is in retrospect, or like it's saying that because he had prayed this, he had said this, but while the Arabic is just saying وَقَالَ نُوحٌ. But I'm not sure that there's, because this does happen a lot in the Quran, right? The things that stories are not all in chronological sequence.
Okay,
So
so
we don't
you're
know for sure.
giving it. Okay, so Zanir has spotted that the translator of these verses is in a sense trying to rationalize what's happening, right? Because they're dead. They're already dead. But here's the thing: if you follow the verses sequentially, it's pretty obvious he's still talking about them, and this is how Sheikh Al-Akbar understands it. So let's just stick with that point of view for now, right? Especially this last one. وَلَا تَزِدِ الظَّالِمِينَ إِلَّا تَبَارًا, right? Why is he still praying against them if they're already dead? Think about it. Because he is still being their murshid, guiding them, and you'll see how this is guidance. It doesn't look like it. He's guiding them in the afterlife, in the barzakh. He's still guiding them and bringing them to their point of perfection in the barzakh.
Wow.
Because that's the only explanation. I mean, there must be another explanation, as Nir was pointing out, but really, this one is very interesting and satisfying. Because they're dead. So what are all these du'as if they're dead? If you go to other surahs, I can't, now please correct, like when the punishment comes of Qawm Hud, Qawm Salih, are there other du'as against them when they're already dead? Does anyone remember that? I don't. Qawm Lut. This is the only surah I know of where he continues to pray against them when they're already dead. Because something's happening in the afterlife in the barzakh, and he's still guiding them. Right? So all of this is just to say that I think there's a good argument for making Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam the murshid of his people according to this fuss, which I think is a good way of reading it. Sorry, who's raising their hands? Aitaf, go ahead.
Yeah, I was listening to the conversation and discussion around it, and I thought maybe one way to understand it is like when you in a movie, when you watch a movie, you start by the end.
Oh,
The producer or the director would start at the end when everyone, for example, like the conclusion. Then then after that, the director would start basically to recall the previous event before the conclusion happened. Would that make a sense in this surah?
This is what Zira was pointing out to. This is what she was pointing out. Like, very possibly, Artaf. Like, there's no way I can claim a monopoly over
Yeah,
this
I know.
over this interpretation, because the verses are deliberately vague, which gives you the opportunity to interpret them in more than one way. So you could very well be right. What the Shaykh al-Akbar's method is here is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose to order the verses and put them in a certain order for a certain reason. So there's a divine choice in choosing a certain order and putting the verses in that order. So his methodology would have an explanation for that. And then you get a very interesting result by following that way of doing tafsir. This is not to say that yours couldn't be right as well. It could very well be. Yes, it could be. But I just...
Sayyidina, is it, like in Surah Waqia, when Allah describes the people on the right and the people on the left?
Yes.
And the left, and then there is a shorthand, I believe in certain spiritual systems where the left-handed way, that's a name, a left-handed way, where people, it's kind of like Mulamati Sufis, where people do the wrong thing on the surface, so that people actually blame them, and they attract blame and alienation from the people around them. But in some ways, they are also actually invaged, and they also actually end up in paradise. And in some ways, it can be compared to, we talked about how being inside the Kaaba, you can pray any direction, right? Because you're
That's right.
inside.
That's right.
So the Qibla is all around you.
Yep.
And if we go diametrically opposite through the center of the earth into a point in the ocean, close to, it's in the ocean, Pacific Ocean, depths of the Pacific Ocean, close to the South Pacific Island someplace. But if you go through the center of the earth on that place, you would also be able to pray every direction, because it's you're equidistant from Kaaba in each and every direction. So it's kind of like the left hand way and the right hand way. Even in the opposite way, you are kind of in the point of Wajd.
There's no doubt that this point gets alluded to somewhere in the fuss. You're absolutely right, Huma. It doesn't apply to Qawm Nuh.
Okay.
But you're totally right to speak that way about the Muhammadiyeen, because some of them, by the way, you talk about the people of blame, who are the Malamiya. The
Malamia. Yeah.
Malamiya are
Malamia.
are the highest awliya. So the
Yeah.
Malamiya are Muhammadiyeen. Yes. And so you see the ahwal of the Malamiya in Qawm Nuh. Exactly. That's why he praises them upon the tongue of blame. The tongue of blame of the Sharia, but also the blame means they're Malamiya. Yes. Yes.
Can I add
And
something, Dr. Faris?
and then, all right, just a second. And then the prince of the Malamiya is who? Sayyidina Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And what was his maqam before he was a prophet? He was one of the Malamiya before he was a prophet. That was his maqam. Yeah, go ahead.
So I was thinking, it says وَقَالَ نُوحٌ, right? And
Yes.
وَقَالَ نُوحٌ رَبِّ لَا تَذَرْ. And so
Yes.
like what is not necessarily a like what's it called? Particle of time. Like it's not like summa. Like it's not like necessarily that it doesn't necessarily mean then. It just means and, or it can mean many things, not just and. But
Yes.
it doesn't necessarily mean that this thing happened after this other thing. And also, I don't know about Hud and Ad and Samud and Saleh, alayhim salam, but Musa alayhi salam in Bani Israel, their story is like spread throughout the Quran, and it's almost, I don't think it's not in chronological order at all. So it starts off with like, yeah, it doesn't start off with like Musa alayhi salam, for instance, being put into the river. That's not how it starts off. It just starts off with God blaming Bani Israel for certain things. And then later on, it's like, oh, Musa alayhi salam's mother put him in the, put him in the river and stuff. So which is like very clearly out of sequence. And I know that Nuh alayhi salam's story is also, I mean, mentioned in another surah because you just quoted it about them mocking and him building the ark. So that part of the story is not even in the story, in the surah. So then, so I feel like it's one of those things where the story is out of, I think it's only Yusuf alayhi salam's story, as far as I know, that is like in complete chronological sequence with no like flashbacks. But yeah, I guess this could be a flashback.
I mean, it's possible. This is what I thought when you were both talking about. So it's possible, but no one can claim that it's definitively one thing or the other. So you've got an argument for saying why it's a flashback. There is an argument for that, and there's also an argument for saying it's not. So it can go either way. So first Nuh will depend upon it being an actual chronological event in that surah. And as you said, of course, the Quran doesn't function that way throughout the whole of the Quran. But in Surah Nuh, like it would appear to be very chronological. So this is how Shaykh al-Akbar has taken it. So then you just see what results that gets you. And what's so beautiful about having different perspectives in the Quran is you see what result that gets you, what new ilm it gives you, and you benefit from that ilm both ways, without being dogmatic about it. So you're right. That's definitely one way it can be taken. So let's get back to the fuss itself. Hi Ghada, kifak. And then, by the way, it's like you said, Yasmin. So if you're Muhammadan, you get what all the other Anbiya got. That's exactly it. The Muhammadan saint inherits from all the prophets. That's very true. So the people of Nuh alayhi salam, called Nuh, they behave in an awful, blameworthy way because they're behaving like the Malamiya, right? So they're behaving like Muhammadans. The highest station are the Malamiyas. They're the highest awliya. So they are Muhammadans. Now, let's carry on. So he says, فما دعا محمد قومه ليلا ونهارا بل دعاهم ليلا في النهار ونهارا في الليل. So he called them night and day and the night, right? So this is actual Jama'ah. This is actual Quran. When they're intertwined with each other, like yin and yang, right? فقال نوح في حكمته لقومه. So then Nuh alayhi salam says in his wisdom, in his wisdom to his people. Why is it his wisdom? It's his wisdom because it's the only thing he can do. This is the appropriate response to give them, given that only what he can bring is Furqan, right? And what is the definition of wisdom? The definition of wisdom is to do what is proper, for what is proper, as is proper. So wisdom is three-dimensional. It is to do what is proper, for what is proper, as is proper, which means it's to do the right thing for the right reason in the right way. Then it's called wisdom. If you have one of those things missing, it's not called wisdom, right? So I feel like this is also one of the things that the philosophers must have inherited from these kinds of ancient prophets at some point. But anyways, so this was the appropriate, now you're going to be told what is the appropriate action he did. This thing he's doing, this is the right thing to do in his stage. So what does he do in these circumstances? So he says in the verse, يُرْسِلِ السَّمَاءَ عَلَيْكَ مِدْرَارًا, right? If you accept my message of Furqan, then the heavenly, right? The heavens will shower you with rain. That's the meaning of the verse. You'll be showered with a multitude of rain, right? And then he's using this exaggerated form in the Quran, midrara, right? He says like, استغفر ربكم إنه كان غفارا. It's the same rhyming pattern. He is someone who forgives, who can forgive a huge multitude of sins. And likewise, he'll send you a huge multitude of rain if you repent, right? So what's the inward meaning of that? To their Gnostic, Irfani sensibilities. It is the ma'arif al-aqliya. How did you translate that? It's the intellectual sciences. It's the intellectual knowledges, right? So it's the knowledge you get from your intellect. What knowledge does the intellect grant you? Knowledge of what? God's
inner meanings.
His what?
Alamat, God
Not
signs.
just alamat. The heart can give you that too.
You mean that
It grants,
tanzih
it grants you knowledge of tanzih, correct. This is the function of the aql. Because the aql can only tell you about God's tanzih, it cannot tell you about God's tashbih. It cannot. Because the aql tells you what God is not. The intellect tells you what God isn't. God is not like this and not like that. He is not like any of his creation. All we know from the aql is that it can prove to you that God is one, he has to be wahid, and that he exists. Beyond that, your aql cannot tell you anything else. It can only give you negative knowledge of what God is not. It cannot grant you positive knowledge of what he is. Right? And so what does the word aql mean in ancient Arabic? What's it mean?
Something in the head, I think, like it's high.
The thing that they put in the horse's mouth? No.
Okay, so it's not the horse's mouth. It's the rope you tie to a camel's leg. It's the hobble that stops the camel from wandering. So it's actually a chain, it's a fetter. Because the intellect, it restricts God to what he is and what is appropriate to his majesty. And someone who's called an aql, someone who is called like someone who is called an aql, he's someone who has a healthy mind because he chains his emotions, especially if he's a judge. So you always want a judge in a court case who is aql because he restricts his prejudices and his biases. He does not let them wander free so that he can judge the case impartially. That's the aql. And then the aql itself is that which restricts God in a certain form, right? And it will refuse to recognize him outside that form. So you need these sciences of the aql, these intellectual sciences of the intellect. If you are lost in the quagmire, in the dirt of tashbih, that's why it was the wise thing to do, to let his people know what is the cure to their sicknesses and to their illness, which are these intellectual sciences, which will show you God as he really is and bring you back into balance, right? So he told them that this is what you need. But, this is called still Furqan, right? Yeah, Zinir, go ahead.
I don't know if, I mean, I haven't looked into it myself, but I heard that the word aql does not occur in the Quran in like a noun form. It only occurs as yaqilun. And so I was wondering why here, so for instance, where it says al-ma'arif al-aqaliyya, it's just like, I guess, even like personifying aql as a thing is not a Quranic thing because Allah says that تَكُنْ لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ يَعْقِلُونَ بِهَا. So like the, I guess the locus of the aql is the qalb. So how come the Shaykh al-Akbar, when he's like, you know, all about the literal reading, has something, even the word like al-aqaliyya, like that is so foreign. I don't think I've ever read that in the Quran. So like, yeah, I'm just confused why, and the way that you are even explaining what the aql does is not, you know, it doesn't sound very um congruent with like the heart, which is actually the place of the aql in the Quran.
He's just telling you what the aql is. When you read the verse أَفَلَا يَعْقِلُونَ بِهَا, right? Or أَفَلَا لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ يَعْقِلُونَ بِهَا, that's the one, yeah. Don't they have hearts with which they can intellect? Because the Quran is jam'a. So it's bringing a jam'a between two opposites. Qalb and aql are opposites. He's just telling you what the aql is. The reason he is bringing you an explanation of the aql that's not in the Quran is because this is Furqan. He's showing you what aql is as Furqan, not as Quran. That's the point. Sayyidina alayhi salam brings Furqan. So this is not Quran. But you will obviously find many verses in the Quran, by the way, that talk about, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ, which are concomitants of the aql. Okay? So the aql is in the Quran. But in that exact word, I don't know, nothing comes to my mind right now. But thinking and contemplating and reasoning are all in Quran, which are all parts of the aql. So Nuh alayhi salam, he is promising them these intellectual sciences, but they are still sciences that will veil God. There's still hujab. You see the problem with that? It's still Furqan. This is not Quran. So he promises them these intellectual sciences in the world of meanings, في المعاني, والنظر الاعتباري, which is a form of contemplation and consideration to do with metaphorical thinking, right? So you can think metaphorically of God, right? And what is the relationship between you and God? That's still an intellectual science. So these sciences are all veils, right? Even though in his wisdom, this is what he had to say, he's still offering them veils. And what they want is what? Kashaf. And he's still offering them Furqan, but what they want is Quran, right? So he's still only offering them things that they can only reject. With respect to his station, not with respect to the Risala. With respect to Risala, he did what he was supposed to do, and you can humanly accept it. They can humanly accept it, but they won't, right? وَيُمْدِدُكُمْ بِأَمْوَالٍ, and then he will support you with wealth. Now, the whole of this page can be described as money, wealth, and the way you spend your wealth. That's what this whole page is about. Money and the way you spend your wealth. So he says, وَيُمْدِدُكُمْ بِأَمْوَالٍ أي بِمَا يَمِيلُ بِكُمْ إِلَيْهِ. So if the outward meaning is money, for Shaykh al-Akbar, always the inward meaning of wealth are actually beliefs. Excuse me, الاعتقادات. Amwal is اعتقادات. Why is that? What is, because he says أي بما يميل بكم. What does the word amwal mean in its root, in its jadar, which is the word mail? What is that?
Is it inclination towards
It is
something?
absolutely, it is inclination. It's when it makes you incline towards something. So we love our wealth because it makes us inclined towards it. Like we love gold by its very nature. We love wealth by its very nature. It draws us towards it. That's why you'll find in Fusus Harun that there's a riwayah from Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam. He says, "Oh, Bani Israel." So this is an allusion to them using their wealth to make the ajl, the golden calf. He says, don't put your love of wealth on the things of this earth. Put your love of wealth in the heavens, so that your hearts will incline towards the heavens. So put your riches in the heavens, so that your hearts will incline towards the heavens, which is the riches of the malakut, the spiritual riches, right? So this is what he says to them. Now, what that means here is that Sayyidina Nuh is saying, you'll be supported with your beliefs in God, right? Which is, what are those things that will draw you towards God? What are those things that will draw you towards God? So here he says, بِمَا يَمِيلُكُمْ, بِمَا يَمِيلُ بِكُمْ, right? It's what draws you towards him, what makes you incline towards them, right? So you'll be given these knowledges and beliefs in God, which is a Gnostic's treasure. The treasure of every Arif Billah the treasure is their belief in him. And their ma'rifah of him. Every single wali treasures that. So he's offering them treasures. The outward meaning is physical treasures, and the inward meaning of that is spiritual treasures. So then he says, فَإِذَا مَالَ بِكُمْ إِلَيْهِ, right? رَأَيْتُمْ صُورَتْكُمْ فِيهِ. And if you are drawn towards him, you will what? You will see him in, or rather, no, you will see him. Okay. رَأَيْتُمْ صُورَتْكُمْ فِيهِ. You will see your forms in him. You will see yourselves in him. You will see yourselves in God. Why does he say that? Can anyone actually see God? They cannot, because he is too high and transcendent to be seen in himself. So if you ever actually see a vision of God, then what that means is that if you ever have like a spiritual experience in which you are witnessing God, you're not seeing him. You're not seeing him in himself. What you're seeing is yourself. You're seeing yourself in God. Suratkum fi. You're seeing yourselves, your forms in him forever and ever. Because you can't see him as he is in himself, right? That's impossible. فَمَنْ تَخَيَّلَ مِنْكُمْ أَنَّهُ رَأَهُ فَمَا عَرَفَ. So the one who imagines that he actually saw God, that's not knowledge. So he hasn't actually seen him. So he is not a knower. So he hasn't truly known God. But وَمَنْ عَرَفَ مِنْكُمْ, but whoever amongst you knows أَنَّهُ رَأَى نَفْسُهُ, he's only seeing himself in God, فَهُوَ الْعَارِف, he's the real Arif. So now we have the second thing that's being offered to the people of Nuh alayhi salam, which is wealth that they can't really use. Why? Because it's still furqan, because you're not actually seeing God. So what is this knowledge that you're offering about God when you can't even see him? Right? This is one interpretation of that story. Another interpretation given by the commentators is that this shows you that the people of Nuh are ignorant because they think they're seeing the real reality, God, but they don't know that it's not him. They're only seeing themselves and their own beliefs. This is another interpretation of that story, right? And the Shaykh al-Akbar leaves the question open so that you can have more than one interpretation, right? When you see God, you're seeing yourself in him. Does that make sense to you guys?
I'm sorry,
Now,
when do they think that they're seeing him?
sorry.
And Siddhi, could we say that when we see God, we are seeing ourselves in him, but also him in ourselves? That the heart is so clean, it's so pure, the mirror of the heart is so polished that it's that reflection in your own heart of him.
Absolutely.
So the container, right? So that's why it reflects us, because we are the container.
But the God you're seeing in your own purified heart is still what's called al-ilah al-mu'taqid. It's the God created in beliefs. It's the God of beliefs. It's not the God al-mutlaq, the absolute God, because you can't see the absolute God.
Yeah.
But yes, you can easily say that, absolutely. So he's talking about what? He's talking about the sama, midrara. He's talking about the amwal. Now, Sheikh al-Akbar doesn't mention it here, okay? But if we go back to the surah, so let me share with you the actual page. Okay, here we go. And we go back a little bit. What does he say? He's also saying, ويمددكم بأموال وبنين ويجعل لكم جنات. What does jannat mean?
Gardens?
And what's the root meaning of the word of Jannah?
Hidden?
Yes.
Yeah.
And from that we get the jinn, who are the hidden beings, right?
Yeah.
So Jannah means to cover over. So he is still offering him things that only are coverings, not uncoverings. And they can see through that. So let's take it back to the first page. And like we'll wrap up in a couple of minutes.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
I was just thinking about he acts as their murshid and he takes them to the finishing station.
Yes.
But he can't do that as the prophet from his station as a Nabi, because do you see what I mean? Because to bring them to the station, they need to go to the Quran, and he can't do that as a Nabi, but he got the role of murshid and able to take them to that. So that just seems a slightly contradictory thing.
As a prophet, he brings the law. As a prophet, he brings the Sharia, right? And then as a wali, he uses the Sharia, which he's explaining right now, to guide them towards their state of perfection.
Yeah,
okay. And he works from within his Sharia. Yeah, mashallah. Mashallah. That's a really lovely point, actually. And yes, exactly. It's his wilaya that can recognize what's going on with their ma'rifat as well. Yes. Whereas it's his nubuwa and his risala that brings the actual sharia. Yeah, sorry, Zanira, you were saying something. When do they think they are seeing him? Well, no, so you either think you're seeing yourself or you're seeing him. If they think they are seeing him, right? It means they think that they are seeing him in their beliefs. Like, this is the way reality is. What is the way reality is? Multiple gods. I am seeing him in the multiple gods. And I know that reality is made up of multiplicity. And therefore, I know that these multiple gods are true. This is a false belief, for one thing, for many reasons. And we'll come back to that issue. It's a false belief. So they think they are seeing him in their wealth and their beliefs, right? But they're not seeing him. They're seeing themselves. They are seeing themselves. And the Arif Billah knows he's only seeing himself in his belief. He's not actually witnessing God himself. He's seeing his self in God. فمن تخيل منكم أنه رآه فما عرف ومن عرف منكم أنه رأى نفسه فهو العارف. He's the real عارف. فلهذا انقسم الناس إلى غير علم وعلم. It's because of this that people are divided into those who know, those who don't know. Very true. Those who know who they are seeing themselves, they're the true knowers. As Ghari was saying, من عرف النفس فقد عرف ربه. Exactly. He who knows himself knows what he's seeing. He knows what he's actually seeing. وولده, and then he promises them children. Right? What is the inner meaning of children? Your thoughts, your the results of your intellectual thinking. So the intellectual thinking goes back to the intellectual sciences where you use your reasoning that he was promising them from the rain. And so that gives you what's called the conclusions, the natija, which you rely upon to construct your beliefs. Because once you've got the conclusions, you say, this is the way reality is. Once you have based yourself on your conclusions, then you rely upon them, right? So I promise you children. And in real life, your children are the end result of all your labors anyways. And the child is the secret of his father. That's a prophetic hadith. وهو ما أنتجه لهم. It's what results from them. هو ما أنتجه لهم نظرهم. Right? It's the result of their thinking. نظرهم الفكري. والأمر but the thing that can tell you the way reality works is is actual unveiling, witnessing. When Allah lifts the veil from your eyes and you have mushahada. So, he says, وَالْأَمْرُ مَوْقُوفٌ عِلْمُهُ عَلَى مُشَاهَدَةٍ. The knowledge of the way reality works is dependent upon witnessing. You see? So that's the opposite. That's again the opposite of what they need. These are more veils. These are more.
Dr. Faris, you're breaking.
You hear me now?
Yeah,
Now,
but we
yes.
lost you a little bit ago, a couple
Okay,
of
guys.
times. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So, وَالْأَمْرُ مَوْقُوفٌ عِلْمُهُ عَلَى مُشَاهَدَةٍ. So reality depends upon you witnessing, an unveiling in which you see the way reality works, not based on your conclusions in which you depend upon and your own intellectual reasoning as to which you speculate about the way it works. بعيد, it's far عن نتائج الفكر. This is far from the results that are granted to you by your reasoning and your thinking. So, the people of Noah have reason to reject this. Yes or no? From the perspective of their ma'rifah, they have reason to reject the promise of rain and wealth and children, because they're all veils. Each one thing he's promising them is just one veil after the other, which is the result of Furqan. So then he says, إِلَّا خَسَارًا. Now, what does that mean? So he actually is, let's just wrap up in 5 minutes, I guess. Let's go back to the surah. Right? So he skips all these parts. And then we get to here. وَقَالَ نُوحٌ رَبِّي إِنَّهُمْ عَصَوْنِي وَاتَّبَعُوا مَنْ لَمْ يَزِدْهُ مَالُهُ وَوَلَدُهُ إِلَّا خَسَارًا. So now he's going to this verse. And you see, what's happened is, if they have rejected the promise of rain and wealth from Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam and children from Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam, what did they do? وَاتَّبَعُوا. They followed the one. مَنْ لَمْ يَزِدْهُ. Who is this one? They followed him. They followed him whose wealth, his wealth, and his children did not increase them except in loss, who led them to loss. So the Mufassirun say that this him, Man Lam, this individual, he is one of the chiefs of the tribe, one of the really rich chiefs. So they said, we don't want the children you're promising us, you're promising us, nor we don't want the wealth that you're promising us. We'll follow him, and we will depend upon his wealth and his children. So we'll depend upon what? His beliefs and his conclusions. And then Sayyidina Nuh said, so their disobedience to me has led them to loss. That's what he's saying. So let's go back to the Fusus for the final part. إلا خسارة فما ربحت تجارتهم. So their trade did not profit them. Right? Because when you have beliefs, and your beliefs are your wealth, you take them to the marketplace, that is the divine marketplace, and you trade them for thawab. And either your beliefs are either fasid or they are salim. They're either batil or they're haqq. Your coin is either counterfeit, according to Rumi. Your coin is counterfeit or it's the real deal. So when you take your beliefs to the divine marketplace and you trade them for rewards, if your belief is correct and sound, you get rewards. And if it's false, you lose. So they lost out. So what does he say? فَزَالَ عَنْهُمْ مَا كَانَ فِي أَيْدِيهِمْ مِمَّا كَانُوا يَتَخَيَّلُونَ أَنَّهُ مِلْكٌ لَهُمْ. The wealth they thought that belonged to them and was in their hands, it has vanished because they imagined it belonged to them, but it didn't belong to them. No wealth belongs to you. They thought it belonged, their beliefs belong to them. It doesn't belong to them. So, and especially seeing as how their trade ware is worthless. They lost out. And then he tells you what that means for the Muhammadans. So what are the Muhammadans commanded to do with their beliefs, their wealth? وأنفقوا مما جعلكم مستخلفين فيها. Spend your wealth as God has appointed you as trustees on his behalf. So they are spending the wealth because God has entrusted the Muhammadans with this wealth. And now they're going to spend it on his behalf. Right? Whereas في نوح عليه السلام, his people are commanded to do the opposite. ألا تتخذوا من دوني وكيلا. Don't take anyone else other than me as a wakil. What does a wakil mean? He's the agent. What does the agent do? The agent says, stop. Don't do anything with your wealth. Give it to me. I will spend the wealth on your behalf. See? And I will make your wealth grow in profit. So the Muhammadan, he spends the wealth himself, acting on God's behalf. The Nuhi, he's the one who does not spend the wealth. He submits the wealth to God, and God is the one who spends the wealth and makes it grow on their behalf. Right? فَأَثْبَتَ الْمُلْكَ لَهُمْ. So when you do that, if God is the agent, by definition, you're the one who owns wealth. So the ownership of the wealth is confirmed for you. And there's evidence of this in the Quran when he says, أَوْلَادَكُمْ أَوْ أَمْوَالَكُمْ. From a certain perspective, God has allowed you to say it's yours. So in that verse, he says that belongs to them. وَالْوَكَالَةُ لِلَّهِ. But the agency belongs to God, who will decide how you spend it, especially seeing as how the wares that the people of Nuh are trading in is a very risky investment. God will spend it on and make it grow on their behalf so that they can profit from it, especially seeing how if they try to do it themselves, they will lose out. And that's what happened. They said, no, we don't want what you have to offer us. We will follow him. We will follow the one who has wealth and children. We will follow his wealth and his children, his beliefs and his conclusions. And so they lost out. Right? فهم مستخلفون فيهم. So now he goes back to the Muhammadans, right? And they are appointed to spend the wealth. فالملك لله. And so in that case, the mulk belongs to God, right? If he made them the trustees, he's the owner of the wealth. Because you got two situations where he is the one who owns the wealth, and he appoints the Muhammadans as the trustees who spend on his behalf. And the situation of Nuh alayhi salam, where God is the one who is acting and spending the wealth on their behalf, and they own the wealth, right? فالملك لله وهو وكيلهم, right? So then, Shaykh Al-Akbar, I want to read this passage with you next time, but he has something called the circle of trusteeship. What is the circle of trusteeship? The circle of trusteeship is when God gives you the wealth to spend as you see fit, but then he commands you, the wealth you are spending, give it back to me, I will tell you how to spend it, right? Because I know best what you need. That's called your maslaha. What is your maslaha? I know best what you need. So what you're
Sorry,
spending,
I'm going to interrupt you. The circle of what?
trusteeship.
Trust.
دائرة الوكالة. دائرة الوكالة. So even though you have the right to spend it, I have now commanded you to give it back to me so that I can spend wealth on your behalf, right? Because I know best what you need. That's called your maslaha, right? فالملك لهم. If you say that he's the agent, فالملك لهم. And there's evidence of that in the Quran. وذلك الملك الاستخلاف. But that's called the ownership of spending. So technically you don't own the wealth, but you own the right to spend it. You own the right to dispense with your beliefs. وبهذا كان الله ملك الملك. Right? Now, it is because of this that God is the Mulk al-Mulk, just as Tirmidhi has said it. He's called Hakim al-Tirmidhi. He's a Sufi philosopher. Hakim al-Tirmidhi. What is Mulk al-Mulk? Mulk is the ownership. of the slaves. God owns the slaves, right? But you also own God in your beliefs, because he manifests himself to you in the form of your beliefs. So he is mulk al-mulk. He is the possession of his own slave too. He owns his slaves, and his slaves own him too. When his slaves own him, it's called mulk al-mulk. That's why you get these sayings from the Sufis, like Abu Zayd al-Bastami and other Sufis too, who say, "Oh Allah, my kingdom is greater than yours." Then Allah responds to him, "How is that so?" And then Abu Zayd al-Bastami says, "Well, in your kingdom, you have many people like me, and I'm nothing. But there's nothing like you, right? Or sorry, there's no one." That's owning God as a belief. And then he tells him, "You have spoken the truth," right?
And that's also again like owning that reflection of Allah in your heart. So
Yes,
you actually
absolutely.
own Allah because He is in your heart.
And that is your perception of him, because everyone has a
Yep.
different perception of him. Yes, you
Yep.
are owning that. You are
But
the
you own it.
owner of that.
Owner, you're the Malik of that.
Yes, yes, exactly. So the Muhammadan has the right to dispense and treat that belief with expenditure. He spends it, right? So that's what the people of Noah are doing, because they're the state of the Muhammadans. They're spending that wealth, but they made a very bad decision by following the tribal chief and his wealth and his children, because his beliefs are batil and his conclusions are false, and his children are like, let's say, naughty boys. They're not good kids. So it led to their loss, right? Next week we'll talk about how they tried to trick Nuh alayhi salam. But the reason they tried to trick him because he tried to trick them first. But that'll be next week. Any questions we can have just to wrap up, and then we'll call it a night. Yes, go ahead. Zanira, yeah, go ahead.
So I was wondering, if this Sheikh said anything about just like, you know, the framing of those sentences is so strange to me because I'm not sure that that's very common in the Quran. So for example, like this, illa khasara, like you said, they will cause them loss, but that's not what he's saying. He's saying they won't cause them increase except in loss, which is a very strange way to word things. And then I guess, you know, that same refrain occurs, illa, you know, this won't happen, illa this, like, illa kafiran yeah, fajiran kafara, sorry. Yeah, so like they won't give birth except to people that are kafir and yeah. So I just thought it was so strange, but in one way it does kind of make sense because it's like duality, like he's putting the duality of ziyada and khasara in there, right? Like it's like he's not saying, like he's not using the verb for khasira. He's using the verb for, yeah, for like la yazidhum, right? Yeah. He's using the verb for ziyada to speak about like loss.
Correct. He followed him whose wealth and children increased them not, save in loss. Yes, yes, increase them in loss. Now, Zanira's question here is, why is Sheikh Al-Akbar cut out half the ayah? That's the question, right? Why does he cut out half
No,
the ayah?
so I'm not
And he does this a
saying,
lot,
no, that's not my
right?
question. It's
Okay,
just,
tell
it's
me.
more about like, why is he framing it like that? And he's not calling them losers straight up. Like he's not saying that these are khasirun, which is something that is said in other places, right? But he's literally framing it in an opposite way. Like he's saying, he's using, like, why is he using the verb for Yazid in order to actually speak about khasara? and then he's speaking about like every like I forgot the whole thing, but there's so many places
I'll
like
tell you
Yeah,
why.
this
can
won't
I?
happen
Yeah.
except for this.
Okay, I'll tell you why, and then Huma, let me hear what you have to say. Let's go to Quran. So maybe you've preempted this. So let's go back to Quran. The reason he's using lam yazidhu, right? Do you remember when I said pay attention to the repetition of words in Surah Nuh? Do you guys remember that? I mean,
Right, so that's what I'm saying. Like this is
if
one of those
you
things that
don't,
is repeated.
I don't blame you given the number of things we talked about. فَلَمْ يَزِدْهُ إِلَّا خَسَارًا. Okay, what does this verse say? Is it here? No.
Is
Here it
it when
is.
he was, yeah, ولم يزدهم دعائي إلا فرارا? I was about to say that.
Good memory. Why is he repeating himself? That's exactly it. And it's not coincidence.
And even about like the having kids towards the end.
Yeah, yes. True. But so for example, let's just take this one idea about this one word. I'll talk about it for 1 second, just as one example. It's because he's mocking them. Just as his call to them did not increase them except in flight, right? And you're going to see it in the next verse. And just as them following the wrong beliefs and the wrong conclusions did not increase them except in loss, then وَلَا تَزِدْ الظَّالِمِينَ إِلَّا ضَلَالًا. Don't you, O God, do not increase them, the oppressors, except in loss, except in going further away and stray. You see? Just as my call did not increase them except in running away from me, O God, do not increase the oppressors except in running away from me further astray. He's mocking them back.
So can I offer a perspective on this?
Yeah, go ahead.
So in Quranically, aulad, children are also considered a form of wealth, a form of
Yeah,
mal,
yes, exactly.
right? And it seems like one of the paradigms working for these people of Noah alayhi salam is of profit and loss. So they talk about, that's why Noah alayhi salam keeps on mentioning profit and loss. Or maybe it is in them and Noah is imposing it on them. So he says that, things that we would assume to be profitable, like even having children in those days was considered as a wealth, and the wealth itself, so the elite who are wealthy and who have lots of children, that will actually increase your loss. And we have like remnants of that in our Urdu language, where it is said that children, and Zanira and anyone who else who speaks Urdu, bache khasare ka sauda hai, and it uses the Arabic word khasara and sauda, that it's a deal, it's a trade of loss. And it's very counterintuitive, right? We consider our children are a nemat, and yet to put too much into them, to anything that deflects from Allah Ta'ala then becomes a trade of loss.
So, okay, let me be precise about this. Having wealth and children does not necessarily lead you to loss. In this verse 21, what's leading them to loss? His wealth, his children, his
The
wealth,
elite,
following
the
him.
misleading, following the misguided elite person who has wealth and
Yes.
children.
If you follow the wealth that Sayyidina Muhammad promised you and the children he promised you, you wouldn't be in loss. You wouldn't. You'd have veils, but you wouldn't be lost. You see? But that's a lovely Urdu poem because it's still nevertheless makes you aware of the dangers, yes, of having wealth and children.
of
Yes,
of that male, of that attraction to both the wealth and children, because there's a huge
yes,
attraction to our children.
yes.
Nothing beats that, right?
The word for that is called fitna. So there are like several kinds of fitna. Like love for leadership is one of them. Love for women, but also it means men, really, the opposite sex is another one, and children. Yes, those are huge fitnas. Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for saying that. Actually, that's
Dr.
really
Faris?
true. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was also thinking, I feel like, because I'm still trying to understand it from like just a linguistic, like speaking perspective. Because if someone were to speak like this, I don't know, I just feel like it's such an odd way to speak. Like it's such like it's posing almost an anti-climax, right? Because he's saying increase, don't increase except in loss. Don't increase except in misguidance. Because
Do you know?
when someone says
Do you
increase,
know? Do you know the other verse where Sayyidina Muhammad SAW talks about
We lost you, Sidna.
Can you guys hear me now or not?
yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. So in the Quran, Allah SWT calls Nuh alayhi salam a thankful servant, abdan shukura, I think. What does shukr do?
What
وأن
would mean this one?
تشكروني لأزيدنكم.
Increases.
Yeah, okay.
It increases whatever you have, the nema.
We lost you again.
Sorry about this. Okay, guys, just give me 1 second.
Alhamdulillah, I can't hear anything anymore, I think.
Dr. Faris is not here. I guess he's
Cut off.
yeah.
Yeah, he's not. I think he got bumped out.
Yeah.
Internet.
But I guess he's still gonna try to connect back.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's wait for him.
And Khadija Habibti, best of luck with your exam, inshallah.
Thank you, Jazakallah.
I mean,
Yeah, while we wait for our Sidna, we might as well chat and get to know each other. It's always such a pleasure to hear all of you, to be in your company.
mashallah. Yeah. mashallah. It's lovely to hear everybody's amazing ideas. Khadija, is that your exam that you know, the...
Yeah, it's the one that I mentioned.
The bane of your existence exam.
Yeah.
Inshallah, it goes really well. I really hope it goes well tomorrow then, inshallah.
Thank you.
Inshallah. Are you feeling a bit better about it now, or is it still...
Okay, Dr. Faris is back.
Alhamdulillah.
Hi, guys. Very sorry about that. So, alhamdulillah, that this doesn't happen too often. But okay. So what was I even saying? Was this? Oh yeah. Okay. So the Quran says that Sayyidina Muhammad salam, he is abdan shakura, and the Ghara said yes. وَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. Now the verse is not just telling you what to do, but it's stating a reality. When you have shukr, you will get an increase in ni'mah. So Sayyidina Muhammad is tied to the reality of increasing because he's an abd shakura. So he expresses his reality in terms of increasing, which you find in the surah, which is one way to address what Zanira is saying. Because you're right, like it's a weird way to, it's a weird syntax. So it has to mean something. So it's tied to the fact that Sayyidina Muhammad is his thankful servant. And he sees reality in terms of increasement. Whether it's an increase in blessings or asking for an increase in destruction of the Zalimun.
Oh, so subhanAllah, is ziyada then like is it not like does not have an inherent positive connotation? Because even when Allah says waladayna mazid and yawm al-mazid, it's like something good. But then also obviously Jahannam says fahal min mazid. So I guess inherently, but because when Allah is saying wala in shakartum la azidannakum, that's a good increase, right? Like there, it's a positive connotation. But then if we're not if, I mean, he is the way that Nuh al-Islam is speaking, is showing that it can also mean increase in negative things.
But don't forget, so in the verse, وَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ, so the ziyada that comes from shukr is good, because it comes from shukr. But the ziyada that comes from what Jahannam is talking about is bad, because Jahannam is not being mashkur, Jahannam is just hungry. Hungry for more.
Right.
So,
also, I just I mean, this isn't about the ziyada, but it was just about what Humajani was speaking about. That I think inherently there's no like inherent value that God attaches to the to Amal and Awlad, because I think in Surah Shu'ara he says that يوم لا ينفع مال ولا بنون إلا من أتى الله بقلب سليم. So like being able to benefit from money and children is dependent on having, I mean, like actually benefit on the day of judgment is dependent on having a qalbin salim.
yeah, of course. Just, one who has been given access to all the realities of the Quran. And he has seen the treasures of the Quran and been given, well, I mean, do you know like what a hafiz of Quran is? Someone who memorizes the Quran, right? But it has a second meaning. It's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down the Quran upon you the same way he sent it down upon Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When you're like that, you're also hafiz Quran. And there are awliya who have that for some of the Quran, and there are awliya who have had that for the whole Quran. Like Abu Yazid Bastami is like one of them, right? So when that verse is sent down upon you the same way it's sent down to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you see like all the haqa'iq that are connected to that verse. So sometimes you'll talk about the verse in a way that's not obvious. So my suggestion, like when you see something from Shaykh Al-Akbar, that appears to be weird, just be patient with it. Because the whole verse is a whole horizon. Like imagine like you're standing on a cliff, you see a whole horizon before you. It's a whole horizon. So there's actually like a lot of things that are happening in the verse that aren't immediately obvious to you before he talks about it, right? Okay, cool. Any other questions? All right, guys.
Thank you.
Pleasure as always. Pleasure as always. And Khadija, good luck tomorrow. Allah ma'ak, inshallah. Inshallah, you'll do well, inshallah. And guys, okay, see you next week for Sufi Path, inshallah. Take care.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much. Best of luck, Khadija.